So the topic of today's webinar is building value in a business so that you can actually sell it. And so let me just share my screen here first so you can see what I see. If that actually works, there we go. Yep. So in the past, we have talked about who is a good candidate for converting to a worker cooperative, and we have talked a little bit about the way to prepare the owner for that financially, physically, and emotionally. And the next step then is to prepare the business to be sold. And because many owners, even though they have put some money away during their lifetime, they usually have owned this business for decades, they may have a gap at the end of the day, so that the value of the business is actually less than they anticipated. So it's not enough for them to retire the way they want. And the way to get around that is to increase the value of the business. So the conventional wisdom here is that you just have to pedal a little harder. You just have to make more sales. You have to do more. John Warrilow, who is a business development author, he wrote the book called Built to Sell. He is actually looking at the multiple. So when you want to try to find out what the value of a business is, you take either the EBIDTA or you take revenue and multiply it by some sort of multiple that is relevant to that industry. So instead of concentrating on the business, the way you do business, you concentrate on the multiple. If you can increase the multiple, then you also increase the value of the business. And he says that there are half a dozen ways to do that. 8, I think he's talking about. And one of the really important ones is the owner. So small business, and the smaller they are, the more likely they are dependent. They are to be dependent on the owner. The owner has all the controls, he has a hand on all the strings in the company, and if he wasn't there, the company would not function anymore. Companies that are a little bit bigger have delegated some responsibilities to workers who do those functions, and they are less likely to be in this category. So how do we go about that? The way John Warrilow tells us to do it is to create systems and procedures so that all the things that need to happen on a daily basis can happen even if the owner is not there. But that comes back to there's going to be a point where you do have to have somebody who has the vision, who has the leadership to be there. So in order to extract the owner himself, one of the things he has to do is to hire next level leaders, because even if you have managers, they are not leaders. Managers are very good at doing the day-to-day. They can get the wheels to turn. Visionaries, leaders are visionaries. They can see into the future and make plans for how to get there. So, and the third, I have it at the bottom of this list. It's financials is one of the really important things, because if you want to sell a business, you cannot show up with a box of receipts like some do. They don't have the resources to hire an actual accountant. Many small businesses are just scraping by. They don't have the extra resources to do that, to have proper financial records. And this is really, really important, because especially in the conversion, because there's always going to be outside financing involved in the conversion situation. And that's the first thing they're going to ask for. What are your financials? We're going to need 3 years good financials. And when you're running a business to make a living, you try to minimize taxes. So you exaggerate your expenses. Sometimes owners will also run half their private lives through the company because it reduces the amount that they have to pay tax on. When you want to sell a business, you pretty much have to do the opposite. You want to maximize the income so that the new owner can, which is the financing company here is a proxy for the buyer, because they are the ones who really decide whether they can buy it or not. So you have to show them that you show them a realistic picture of what the company does, and that's done through the financials. Another thing Warrilow is teaching us is that you have to try to get recurring income. So the more, and he actually wrote a book about that, as a separate book about that, to almost any business can be converted to a subscription model, so that you have contracts with your customers so that they will come back and very rarely cancel out. And another thing that he's talking about is a competitive edge. So for your company to have value, really value is when a buyer would feel that it is more difficult for them to do it on their own than it would be to buy your company. So what you have to do is to find a way to be unique in your marketplace. So, and what that means in many cases is that a lot of small businesses, they'll take any business they can, even if they have to customize every job. And that's really, really resource intensive for them. So what he's saying to you is to have 2 or 3, maybe 4 products that you can sell to your customers without modification, so that everybody, all the customers that you have identified will fit into one of these 4 categories. This is the product that you're going to sell to them. You don't, he's actually going as far as saying that don't think of your customers as clients. If you think of them as clients, you think of them as somebody who needs to be catered to. If you're a customer, you hand them a product over the counter and you receive payment for it. It's a different kind of mentality when you do that. Okay, so the next one on the list here is growth potential. You cannot have, even though most small business owners want to grow, that's not necessarily the case when you have worker owners. They are more interested in have a quality of life in their jobs, but small business owners want to grow and they want to dominate the marketplace. And that's sometimes a mistake, because if you dominate the marketplace, a buyer would not have a way to grow. So you have to make sure that there is a potential for growth in whatever it is that you're doing. And another thing that he's talking about is you cannot have, so some small businesses have 80% of their income coming from 20% of their customers. And that is a dangerous situation, because what happens if one of these large customers disappears or goes to a competitor? That may be simply make the difference between whether you make money or not. So you cannot, you need to try to have customers that are broad-based instead of just relying on a few large ones. And the same thing goes with employees. You cannot rely on just 1 or 2 good employees. You have to have a succession plan so that every position in your company has a successor ready to go if one of them should disappear or, get a better job someplace else or decide to go someplace else. So, and the same thing goes with suppliers. You cannot just rely on one supplier if one vital, you need to have a product to make whatever it is that you're doing. So if you don't have an alternative, if that supplier suddenly goes out of business, you need to have multiple suppliers in your pipeline there. Reputation is it's about web, because now everybody relies on reviews on their websites, but it's really wider than that. You need to have relationships with your customers and suppliers so that they will be talking about you in a positive way. So they will even on their own, without you having to tell them, to refer business to you. So that is those are some of the value drivers that will increase the value of your business, and you will actually be able to sell it, even if those are the things that any buyer would be looking for. Yeah, it doesn't have to be just workers, but any buyer would be looking for that, even if it's an employee buyer or a third-party buyer or management buyout. It's the same. They will always be looking for a way, looking for things that gives them value so that they will be able to be successful in their own lives. So yeah, so this is a little bit about value drivers today. Next week, we're going to be talking about, not next week, the next time we're going to get together, we're going to talk about the 6 ways that you can sell a business. And one of them is going to be converting to a worker cooperative. And then finally, if you have questions about this webinar here today, you can contact me here on this screen. My name is Finn Moritz, and I'm with Fashion Worker Cooperatives. And my number is 516-508-3219, and the email address is fm@fashion-worker.com. Thank you all for attending.